So now we're in the stage where we've got our bass and we've got our drums recorded, and I'll give you a little play of that actually in my room. So this is how it sounds to me right now. Obviously you've already heard the finished version, but to me it sounds like this. So really, really bare drums without anything else on it. And then the bass kicking in here. So the first thing I want to do is there's a synth that starts the song, and it's really, really important. It's, in my mind, it's like a mellotron. So it's just a load of E's, I think. So it's just, obviously not with that sound, but, and then like it is really aggressive and like fades down. So if I go to a mellotron chimes, maybe not. Mellotron organ. And if we start getting close, maybe? Definitely not. Vibe piano. Well, that's definitely closer. Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that part, and I'm just going to layer loads and loads of synths over until I get something that, you know, sort of resembles that big. It's never going to sound exactly the same. They're using analog hardware, and it'll be like, you know, a very simple patch for them. But obviously I've got so many options that it becomes very difficult to pinpoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm not actually going to play it. I could just do that, but since it opens a song, I'm just going to draw them on MIDI. And then I'm going to see if I can, you know, locate exactly what the sound is. So making sure I'm starting on that first bar, which I am. Okay. And yeah, and I'll get back to you once I've got these keys parts recorded, and then we'll start recording some guitars and getting some, you know, solidity. And hopefully already I can hear the vocal being quite easy to place now, because obviously all the orchestrations coming together. But yeah, we should be getting there soon. And this has taken me maybe about 4 hours so far, so not too bad. The drums feels to me like it's half of the thing. Once you get the drums recorded well, then that's the biggest setup. It's the hardest to record. It's the most microphones. Now we've got those drums recorded, we can sort of relax and start experimenting, you know, in between those drums. Okay, I'd say at this point in time we're about halfway through. So we've done our drums, we've done our bass, and we've done our piano parts. So that's our basic rhythm tracks for this song. I haven't done the acoustic guitar yet, but the acoustic guitar's not playing through the whole song. It's just sort of coming in the choruses and then doing some arpeggios during the verse. So it doesn't really need to be included in the rhythm tracks, because I can visualize how that track's going to sound now without the acoustic guitar. Again, it's very low in the mix. But the guitar overdubs is where we're going to, you know, take this track from a very boring, static sounding, you know, just the drums and the bass. So what I've decided to do is I've decided to record the piano parts on the guitar as well. I've transposed some of the little arpeggios that the piano is doing as well. That's happening alongside the acoustic guitar. And I just thought that it would make my synths sound a lot more vintage if I overdubbed it with the guitar, because what you'll get is you'll get that noise from the amps, and you'll get the vibrato on my for my fingers, which kind of gives it that sound of almost like what a tape emulator would do, which is sort of taking it in and out of tune. So what I've got is I'm just running a bit of reverb, delay, a bit of crunch, like a tiny amount. And I'm just sort of playing quite softly and dialing back on my volume, so I'm not kind of sounding too gainy, but just so it cuts through. And the piano part will kind of be like, that, and that kind of, you know, in unison with that piano. I think it will give it a really cool sound. give it a very warm sound, which I think really is missing. And again, that's a decision I'm only really going to make after I've already recorded the piano. So doing it in phases like this, it allows me to get creative. And the overdubbing phase is the more creative phase. Doing the rhythm tracks, that's kind of like just taking the song down to its core elements. I'm also going to do some, just play some chords, which I don't think's in the original. I've been listening quite hard to it, and during these pre-chorus moments, I don't think there's any guitar or piano playing. I think it's just the electric guitar doing the chimes. I don't think there's any chords playing, but I'm going to single strum them just to, you know, structure those parts of it better, because there's a moment in that where it goes from classic chord change, major to minor, like that, and there's actually nothing playing that. It's just the lead guitar switching to that note, and I thought it'd be quite cool to kind of give it again a bit of structure. So that part would sort of sound like just single strumming. And yeah, and I'll check back into this little diary once I've done my overdubs, and then we can start. And I'll start playing the track fully before we do the acoustic guitar and vocals, and see kind of whereabouts we are. Okay, so we're still on our guitar overdubs, but if you noticed before, we already recorded DIs, and we recorded a DI of our Boss guitar pedal, and we recorded a dry DI. Now we've got it reamped in the live room with a 57 directly on the cone to get, you know, quite a bright sound for this part. And what I've done here, if you see these two tracks, that's the Boss one and that's the dry one. I'm using it like a dry wet signal. So the wet signal being from the Boss pedal and the dry signal being from the dry and clean DI print. And I've got both of those running into the amp. And if I just play now, what you're going to hear isn't through our monitors, it is through the amp in the live room. Which is the first chime. And I'm monitoring them through my headphones so I can see how the 57 sounds. If I just tilt here, you can probably just make out there the 57 on the Vox. And obviously what's really, really cool about that is I've got, you know, I don't have to be recording at over 100 decibels for a ridiculously long period of time, you know, going take after take. And I could put any mics I want on that guitar amp. And I don't have to like put 2 or 3 mics at once. I could record one mic, do it again, record another mic, and then kind of, you know, have the total freedom to have, you know, do the best miking techniques I can. It's not a particularly wide stereo image because there's only one take being recorded. But what I might do, what I'm thinking about doing, is recording the back of the AC30 as well. just obviously flip the phase, record it at the same point, and that way get a bit of a stereo image doing that, and just quite a punchy sound. But I'm just going to go ahead and record this. I've got a electric guitar amp track selected, and literally all you do is you press record, because you're only recording the 57, but you've got to be, you know, a bit quiet about it, because this isn't a chain. This isn't 2 rooms chambered. It's 1 room, but it's just divided. So we still have to monitor through headphones and not through speakers. But it's a small price to pay for the sheer convenience of being able to, you know, record a DI guitar and still get the same effect later on. It's an absolute staple in the way I record my guitars now, particularly if we're recording with a drummer at the same time, because then the guitar player could record his parts in the control room, and then if the performance sounds good, we could just reamp them later and get, you know, the perfect isolation that we want. Okay, so now we're getting ready for our final overdub, which is the acoustic guitar. But I thought I'd just show you sort of where I am in the project. So I've just got ideas really, all recorded. The rhythm tracks are the only thing that are fairly solid at this point, but the synths and the electric guitar are sort of just, again, ideas. So we got our electric piano here, overdubbed with the electric guitar. Are very useful because I'm recording digitally, but as you can see, I still can load up faders, and it's just really helpful just to be like, okay, well, I want to hear more bass. There it is, essentially. So if I just keep playing, say we solo this, and say we solo kick and snare. Solo clear. Now those electric guitars and in those verses are going to be really low in the mix. The only time you're really going to be aware of the keys in electric guitar is going to be in this the arpeggios in this section here, and maybe the solo at the end. So that initial chime is a combination of piano and guitar. Again, I think the guitar really added, I don't know, it sort of pokes out a little bit. It doesn't have as much decay. So it's a really fast attacking, because obviously you're picking it. And in combination with the synth. So if I just solo these, the intro synth, which I've got going on. Just droning in the mix. I got a cello. Here's my drone sound in there. With every single one of my electric guitars, I've also printed a clean DI and a DI that's come directly from the Boss pedals. So after I've recorded the acoustic guitar and after I've recorded the vocals, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reamp those performances through my Vox AC30, and just to get loads of different textures, put different kind of mics on it, maybe stereo mic it, and just get a really nice solid sound. Again, it's going to be very low in the mix, but right now, the biggest difference I hear from the original is things are being recorded so, I don't know the best way to describe it. So the drums are recorded so loud, so there's no noise on the microphones at all. The synths are all MIDI, so there's no noise on the synths, and the electric guitar parts are all basically DI parts. So you can't hear any amp hiss or any sort of harmonic distortion on any of the tracks. So it sounds a little bit just formulaic and, you know, synthetic. But that's going to change once we add the vocals and the acoustic guitar, because they're obviously both acoustic instruments. And then once we reamp them into our guitar amps, we'll also get that sort of noise on an amp. Noising an amp, people always think is a bad thing, but it's not. It's what makes it sound real. And you can fake it, but the preamps on a guitar amp is unrivaled by any digital preamps, in my opinion. So using that and then using our analog hardware as well will give that, you know, analog feel, because the track really does sound like it was recorded in the 60s. And that's something, that's a flavour I do want to add to this at some point, but that might be in the mixing phase. And right now we're just collecting ideas, so that when I do mix this track, it's going to be as simple as possible. So now I'm going to get ready to record the acoustic guitar, and I'll show you what microphone techniques I'm going to use. Okay, I'm starting to do the acoustic guitar recordings now, and I've settled on just a small diaphragm condenser mic'd up here. Now, kind of unusual mic technique, but not really, because it's exactly the same as micing down here, but as it's a single cutaway, I'm losing a lot of the resonance if I went like that. And I'd have to be incredibly accurate, because while I'm playing, I might just do that by accident, and then all of a sudden we're miking nothing, and we're just getting overtones. So if I mic up here, I can stay right in this position here. It's still obviously angled away from the sound hole, even though the sound hole's not going to be an issue at all. And the sound hole is just what I'm rejecting completely. I want almost, well, no low end and almost no low mids. Because it's in the acoustic guitar's only playing in sections with drums, bass, another electric guitar, piano. So if I had those low mids, then the mix would get muddy. And you've got to think about these things even in the recording phase as well as the mixing phase, because it's all well and good saying, okay, well, high pass it and cut the low mids out. But it's never going to sound as good as if you try to reject that in the recording phase, and getting a good source is incredibly important. This is going directly into the console, and all I've got going on is I'm high passing at 100 Hertz. So we're really, really rejecting the low end. This mic in particular doesn't pick up much low mids anyway. So we're already kind of saving ourselves a lot of time, a lot of CPU power by, you know, getting these recordings done, you know, perfectly, should we say. If I put my headphones on, so as you can see, you might be able to see the iPad there, because obviously, again, I'll say it again, I'm in here on my own. So I'm monitoring Logic through the iPad, so I'm not having to go back to the control room and keep, you know, changing things and, you know, messing around with preamp gain. I can control all my preamp gain, you know, all my high passing. I'm not running any compression or EQ. I only really run compression EQ when I record on things like vocals, never on guitars, and maybe obviously kick drums and snares. I will tweak, you know, 60 Hertz for the kick, 200 for the snare, that sort of thing. And obviously high passing where it's required, always going through. Again, just save yourself some time. Undoubtedly, I will be high passing in the mixing phase just in case. But again, it's really good just to, you know, leave no opportunity for those low frequencies to get into the mix. So if I just play what the acoustic guitar's playing, obviously you're just hearing it in the room, but essentially it's going. And that's the arpeggio. And then the there's no acoustic guitar in the pre-chorus, but there is in the chorus and the outro, which is. And then the little change of. And then that's the guitar solo on that part there. So incredibly basic, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to record 2 takes, and that's for in the mix. I'm going to make a wide stereo image with 2 takes of the acoustic guitar. I contemplated if I should have done an XY with a couple of pencil condensers, but again, it's low in the mix. It's not, at no point is the acoustic guitar exposed on its own. If you look at another cover I did of Wish You Were Here, you'll see that I am using stereo miking, and for the lead guitar, I think I've got a condenser mic on it to pick up all of those frequencies. because it was just an acoustic performance, and you want the low mids if there's no bass, and you want the low mids if there's no kick drum. But right now it would be an absolute hindrance to imprint those effects. So right on here, you know, rejecting it's probably the best miking technique for rejecting low mids is a small diaphragm condenser on the body, not on the strings, and obviously nowhere near the sound hole. So I'll check back in once I've got these parts recorded, and then I'll show you what the recording session is looking like at the moment, and then we'll start thinking about vocals. And we really need to take our time with vocals. Almost a whole day we might spend doing vocals, because it'd be absolutely pointless doing all of these cool little miking techniques and all these mixing techniques if our vocals don't sound up to scratch. And as I'm performing as well, there's that added pressure. So everything is really crucial to keep in mind, that everything in your song, if your song has got vocals in it, is in service of the vocals, nothing else. If you could pick one performance to be absolute top draw, it would be the vocal performance 10 times out of 10, and only really a very specific niche areas would you not focus on the vocals, to the point where I actually can't give you an example where you would, you know, not think about the vocals first. So we'll just give this a few run throughs, and then I'll check back in with you later.